Hello, everyone. This is Jill Hope, and this is episode 5 in our Women with Wealth series. In this series, we explore big, powerful ideas in a fairly focused amount of time that can really expand your ability to live the life that you truly desire, whether it's a lifestyle that you are visioning for yourself, or it's a business that you want to build, or a certain place you want to get to in your current business. This is the place for you. Now, today, what we are covering is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. This is something that I have struggled with over the years, and I've done a lot of work around it. And I continue to see other people struggle through it too, when you really don't have to. And so, what the topic is you can't create big things with small thoughts. So, what I notice with women is that we tend to have this habit of making ourselves small. So, we see ourselves as small, everyone else is bigger than us, and we also make our needs less than others. We make our desires smaller than others, and we make our voices less valuable, right? And so, basically, we train ourselves to think small thoughts. And it's not just that we're doing this to ourselves and we don't know any better. We're actually conditioned to think smaller. Now, this happens in many different ways, but some of the more common ways that you'll see is a parent repeatedly telling a child, and maybe you heard this when you were growing up, that you should be grateful for what you have, or that you want too many things, or you shouldn't want more. You should just be happy with what you have. And many of us heard a version of that. And what it does is it's actually against our nature. It's against human nature, because it's human nature to expand. We've probably talked about this in other calls, but it's our human nature to expand. And so when you're told a message repeatedly that you shouldn't want more and that that's somehow wrong to be the way that your true nature is, what we do, and women are really good at this, is we will start to carve down and shrink down what we want into something that is so small. And then we sit there and think, well, why aren't I manifesting more? Why aren't things growing the way I vision? Well, a big part of it is that we've got these old subconscious beliefs that somehow say that we're not supposed to do that maybe we're being greedy if we want more, or somehow we're being selfish if we want more. So we can have a lot of subconscious programming that sets us up to think small in the first place. Now, when I first realized that this was a big issue for me, it was interesting because I was on a shopping, just like an afternoon shopping spree with a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. And this was, I would say, about 25 years ago. So quite a long time ago. I was still working in my corporate job. I think I had just gotten married, but hadn't been married for very long. No kids at the time. So I had disposable income. There was definitely disposable income there. We were on this afternoon shopping trip, and I'll never forget this. It was such a strong feeling that I got in my body. So my friend, who just is a just precious, precious person, she was gathering up a lot of merchandise, like a lot of things from this store. And this was not an inexpensive store. And I remember when we went to check out, I think I had maybe one piece, and she had, I don't know, a number of pieces. And I remember when they rang it up. Now, remember, this was about 25 years ago, but they rang it up and it was $500. And you would have thought it was $50,000 by the way I felt when I saw what they were ringing up. It was $500. It would be like $800 today. But for some reason, that $500 to spend in a quick afternoon in one store just felt so big. And I thought, oh my gosh, how can she do that? And I had all these thoughts in my mind, and I really didn't want to go to judgment, but I sort of was. And I loved this friend. And so it was really interesting to observe me having these feelings and these thoughts. And then right away, I also started to feel small, like, oh gosh, I could never do that. And I wouldn't feel right about doing that. And somehow that would be wrong if I were to do that, or I would make it wrong. And so seeing myself having such a strong reaction to that, I knew that I needed to delve into what was going on here, because I was definitely in my personal growth path at that time, not as deeply as I am now. I hadn't even conceived of my business yet, but I was definitely on the path. And so I knew I had to look at this. And what was so interesting is that when I sat down and I asked myself, what was that about? Why did I feel so triggered and have such a strong reaction when my friend spent $500 at the store? And immediately what came to me was I saw this memory. And it was a memory from, I was very young at the time. It happened over a period of years where it was our family, and we would go to visit my grandparents who lived on a farm. And it was about an hour away from where we lived we were in more of a suburban area. And so we would be coming home, and it felt like such a long drive as a child to sit in the car for an hour. And so my dad would want to treat us halfway. And so he'd say, okay, kids, I'm going to take you to Dairy Queen. And we'd get really excited, like, here is this big treat. And then as we're pulling in the parking lot, my dad would always say, without missing a beat, every single time, he would say, okay, so we're here, we're at Dairy Queen, but remember, everyone's just getting the small vanilla cone. And so what it meant was I didn't get to choose. I didn't get to have what I wanted. And although I was really grateful that I could go to Dairy Queen and I could have a small vanilla cone, that did feel like a treat. But the fact that he told me what I had to choose, and it had to be the small cone, and it had to be vanilla, and I actually wanted a larger cone, and I actually wanted sprinkles on my cone, but I was not allowed to have that. And so imagine as a kid being in that experience over and over and over, because every time we went to visit my grandparents, we stopped at Dairy Queen afterward. That went deep into my subconscious. And what it said to me was, number one, think smaller. You shouldn't want more. This is good enough for you. And maybe you're not worth having anything more than a small vanilla cone. Now, I know that none of those things were going through my dad's mind when he was saying this. He felt like he was doing the best he could for us by taking us to Dairy Queen, and he was trying to keep a rein on the expenses. And there were 4 of us kids, so it adds up. So I totally get it. But it went really deep for me, and it affected how I thought about everything in my life, especially when it came to spending money. So I share this because what I invite you to do is to think about, where in your life are you thinking small? Where do you automatically have those knee-jerk reactions that have you thinking in a smaller way, in a way that may not be in alignment with what you really want? And that's the key. Because what we do is we will fool ourselves into thinking that our small thoughts are actually what we want. And so we need to start getting real with ourselves as women and really look at this issue, because I'm telling you, this small thinking issue is so prevalent with women in our society, so prevalent. We really have all the power within us to create whatever we can conceive of. But if we don't allow ourselves to conceive of the big things that we really want in our heart and soul, if we're not willing to go there, we will never have those things. We've got to be willing to think bigger, to give ourselves permission to think bigger. Another situation that I want to talk about is, it's another way to think about the situation and to look at it. And it's another way that it could have creeped into your subconscious mind. We were talking about a time when my son had tried out for the travel baseball team. And he was, I think, 8 years old at the time. And he was really excited about it because he was invited to try out. It was this big deal. He hadn't really been thinking about it, but it actually had him thinking a bit bigger about himself and about his skills. And he, at that time, had often talked about wanting to be a Major League Baseball player. And I know a lot of kids do that. They will think big as children, and then we sort of condition them to think smaller and smaller and smaller. So I was very aware of this situation because, like I said, that shopping experience I had happened, many years before in the early days of my marriage. My son, who was not even a twinkle in my eye yet at that point. And so I really didn't want to put that on him. I wanted to encourage him to think big and to learn how to think big and not to be conditioned with small thoughts. So this travel baseball situation came up, and he was really happy to be invited, and he had a really healthy attitude about it because we talked about this idea that we don't know what's going to happen. He might make it, he might not. I mean, we don't know. And he said, "You know what, Mom? Whatever happens, I'm just really honored that they asked me to try out, and I'll be okay with whatever happens either way." So I thought, well, wow, that's a really mature attitude for an 8-year-old. And so he went and did the tryout. And about a week later, we got the results back and we found out that he did not make the team. And so I wasn't too worried about telling him because he had such a mature attitude about it. Obviously I was disappointed for him, but I figured, well, he'll try out next year and he'll probably get on next year and we'll work towards it next year, all that stuff. So I told him, and oh my gosh, you would have thought that his world had just ended. He was so upset. He was so beside himself. I was heartbroken at seeing him like that. And I knew that there was something going on in his mind in relation to this whole scenario. So I asked him, and this, pay attention because this is how we do this to ourselves. So I asked him a very important question. I said, "Honey, what are you telling yourself about the fact that you did not make the baseball team?" And you know what he said? This 8-year-old kid, without even really thinking about it, he said that I'm a bad baseball player. And that is what we do to ourselves. And this contributes to the small thinking because we take a situation and we make it mean something about ourselves, something that is not good, typically. And then that goes in because it's a statement that we're saying to ourselves. It's attached to a strong feeling and it goes straight into your subconscious mind. And it becomes a belief that plays out over and over and over. So because I knew that and I had learned that, I was able to nip that in the bud with him. And so what we did is I immediately counteracted that thought that he was having. Now pay attention to this, because although I'm talking about a parenting issue, this is how you can reparent yourself with these small thoughts. So when I asked him that question and he immediately said that I'm a bad baseball player, right there and then I got a hold of that limiting belief, because it's not true or he wouldn't have been invited to even try out, right? And we looked at all the ways that it was not true, that he was thinking that. And he was really taking in what I was saying. And so I was, saying things like, well, you wouldn't have even gotten invited if you were not a good baseball player. And, look at all of the home runs you hit last season, which was true. And I said, and do you think there are professional baseball players out there that think that they're bad baseball players? He's like, no. And, surely they don't get to that level by believing that they're not good. So after we had this it was just a quick, 5-minute conversation, and he was able to take on some new beliefs. And at the end of the day, he agreed that, next year he wanted to try out again. He did make the team, and he didn't allow that limited thinking to sink in. So for you, with this idea of small thinking and small thoughts, you can change small thinking. But to do it, you first need to know, where am I thinking small in my life? That question I asked you a little bit ago. And then you want to look at, what situation created that? Kind of like with my Dairy Queen situation that came up and my friend's shopping experience, when I asked myself, where did these big feelings about her spending $500 at the store, at the mall, where did that come from? And I got that image. I quickly realized that there was a limiting belief set inside of me at that time. And when I looked at the truth of it, Meaning, was it true that just because my dad would only get me a small vanilla cone, that somehow I'm unworthy of anything greater? Absolutely not. My dad was struggling financially then. He was trying to do his very best for us. It had nothing to do with thinking that we weren't worth it. So these are just examples of how you can really get real with yourself when it comes to how you think about things, particularly around money and how you want to live your life, what kind of life you want to create, what kind of business you want to create, what you want your success to look like, what you want your lifestyle to look like. And this takes me to a really, really important idea. And really, really hear me on this idea. Because first of all, why would you think small? Like why what, other than it's been programmed into you, right? But apart from that, even in day-to-day life when things come up, why would you choose to think small? This comes up a lot with my private clients. So we're talking about their vision, we're talking about what they want, and I will sense, I will feel, I will know that, because they'll say something that sort of shows it to me, that there's something more they want, something that maybe they're not saying. And so when we delve in there and we open that up, what I find out, what I hear over and over and over again is a version of this. I'm afraid that if I let myself want that and I don't get it, I'll be disappointed. And I don't want to experience that. Have you ever had this thought before? You don't want to risk being disappointed. So it's easier to think smaller. Be honest with yourself, because I think all of us at one time or another have probably done that. And here is where I have got to step in with this, because I have something to tell you. You can handle disappointment. You can. You can handle it. You are strong enough. You are tough enough. You can handle any disappointment that may crop up from having a dream and not quite getting there. You can handle it. Trust me, you can. You are strong enough. You have what it takes to deal with that. I don't know where we get this idea that we can't handle disappointment. We do this to our kids too. When I used to do a lot of coaching with parents, and we would talk about helping their kids to dream as well and to not have these limited thoughts. And you'll get parents, especially when it comes to sports and possibly your child being a professional athlete, and you get parents that would say, well, I don't really want to plant that idea in his mind or allow him to go there because so few people are able to get to that level, and I don't want him to be disappointed. Well, I've got news for you. Disappointment is actually extremely valuable. To learn how to deal with disappointment builds emotional intelligence. You need to have a range of emotions, and to be able to work through that range, to have a level of emotional intelligence, to be a person who has perseverance and resilience and the ability to bounce back. Where do you learn that if you don't go through it? If you don't actually experience the disappointment and feel all those emotions and learn how to work through them and get out the other side? We've got to stop protecting ourselves from disappointment. It is okay to be disappointed. And actually, there's a ton of wisdom and knowledge to come out of a disappointment. There's many gifts that come from being disappointed. I mean, I will say in my business, I've been doing this for 12 years now, 13 years maybe. And I can't tell you how many launches I've done of this program and that program, and where I have a set plan and I have a certain number of people that I'm hoping will want to come into this program, that I can take them through a set of processes and a program and a pathway, and a certain amount of revenue I hope to bring in because there are certain investments I want to make back into my business. And I can't tell you how many times I don't hit those goals, and it's like, and this is common. This is common in our industry. When you are an entrepreneur and when you are building your business, you try a lot of different things and not everything works. And it's by trying things and then seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work and making adjustments and then moving forward. That's how you grow. That's how you get stronger. That's how you learn. That's where wisdom comes from. If you are not willing to have a big goal because you don't want to feel disappointment, you can never, ever hope to grow in a way that will allow you to experience what you want. So, I really do believe that a big reason why people do not allow themselves to think big is because of this disappointment thing. And I really feel like we have to stop it. We've just got to stop fearing disappointment because it is stopping you from living the life that you want to live. So you are strong. This is what I really want you to take away. You are strong. You are strong enough to risk thinking big and possibly being disappointed. And let me tell you, it's worth it. Because like I said, you've got wisdom that you can gain from that. You've got lessons, you've got new inspirations that can come as a result. That's another thing that's happened for me is when I roll things out, I not only, whether it works or not the way I wanted it to, I will get new inspirations of, oh, I could make this better by doing X, Y, Z. And then I end up coming out with something that really speaks to my ideal clients, right? That maybe was a little bit off the first one or two or even three times that I did it. So it allows me to really hone my craft and hone what I'm doing and hone my offers so that I can really be of service out there. It definitely has allowed me to make a bigger impact in the world. All of the missteps and the disappointments, they weren't for nothing. They were to make me bigger in my ability to serve people and to help people in this world. So, a couple questions for you. Where are you thinking small in your life? Really take some time to look at that and to be honest with yourself about where you're thinking small, where you're thinking smaller than what your heart and your soul know you want. Being really honest with yourself, because we can get really good at convincing ourselves we don't want much. We've had a lot of training in that area. So here's where I'm inviting you to kind of undo some of that. Okay. Another question is, where are you allowing the fear of disappointment to keep you thinking smaller? To hold you back, that actually holds you back. Where are you letting that fear of disappointment get in the way of you really stepping in to what you want? And then lastly, what new decisions can you make today that'll get you thinking bigger, that'll move you more quickly onto that path of where you want to be? Where can you make some tweaks based on what you discover by asking yourself these questions? And that's really the key, because we can sit there and discover all kinds of things about ourselves in moments of journaling and meditation and just quiet contemplation. But if you don't then take that information and actually put it into play, put it into action, it doesn't really change anything. You do have to make a new action, take a new action to see a new result. All those things work together to get you where you want to go. So just like in my Jillian Michaels 30 Days Shred videos that I have been doing faithfully for the last 45 days now, since the beginning of February, she always says in the videos that you are stronger than you think. So I want to say that to you. You, my friend, are stronger than you think. You can handle the disappointment. It's worth the risk to allow yourself to think big, to allow yourself to really look at where you're keeping yourself small in your thinking, because big results do not come from small thinking. That I do know for sure. So that's our message for today. We've been kind of short and sweet today. So I'm going to give you back a little bit of your time this afternoon or this morning or this evening, wherever you are listening from. And I want to let you know that this is something I'm so excited. I am rolling out a money retreat called The Wealth Within. We are doing it on April 17th. And what you will gain from this retreat, it's 5 to 6 hours, and what you will gain is this really intimate knowledge of your relationship with money. You will see your relationship with money in a way that you probably haven't ever seen before. It will allow you to see what your unique wealth blueprint is so that you can start making some new decisions to take you down a new path when it comes to creating the money you want to live the life that you want to lead. So that happens on April 17th. We have got some really fun things planned for you. There are proven processes I'll take you through. We're having wellness breaks throughout the day. So don't worry, it's not going to be you just sitting in front of a PC or camera all day long. We're going to be having you moving. We're going to have be using sound. There will be guided visualizations and just taking time for you, really connecting in with your spirit, your soul, and how you work with money, how you and money go through your life. So that is happening April 17th. If you want to check that out and register, you can do so by going to ishinewealth.com/retreat. That's ishinewealth.com/retreat. I hope to see you there. It would be great to be able to work with you a little more closely during the day. And so if that speaks to you, please check it out. If you have questions about that, you can reach out to me at jill@ishinekids.com. Well, that's all for you today in our Women with Wealth series. I look forward to seeing you next week. Oh, and a little bit of a note about next week. We will be having a call. However, I am going to be replacing it. So I'm doing a call, but it's not technically a Women with Wealth series call. We're doing it next Tuesday at the same time, but next Tuesday, not Wednesday. And it's going to be a call that it's aligned with the money retreat. I'm going to be sharing 3 secrets that will help you to make more money doing what you love. And these secrets are things that I have not really talked about much. I haven't shared about this in our Women with Wealth series. It's some pretty new information. I've probably talked about it with some of my private clients, but possibly one thing I haven't even mentioned to them. So I'm really excited to share these 3 secrets. So be sure to come and join us on that day. It's next Tuesday, same time, 3 p.m. Central. And this will replace our Women with Wealth call next week. And then we'll be back the following week with our with our regular plan for our Women with Wealth series. So thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you next week and hopefully maybe even at our retreat in several weeks. Take care until tomorrow or the next week or the next time we cross paths. Stay well. Bye-bye.